Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome to the second ConnectFX live conversation. My name is Emily Rhodes. I'm the Marketing Director at Liquid Frameworks, and joining me today is my co-host, Matt Dana, the Senior Director of Product Strategy at Liquid Frameworks. Hey, Matt.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good. Happy Friday.
Yeah, you too. Hey, Harminder.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
And of course, our special guest today is Harminder Bhavra, the Enterprise Resource Manager at CEDA International. Hey, Harminder.
Hi, Emily. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
How's it in Calgary? Any snow?
No, thank God, no snow. We've got, it's nice out today, actually.
Oh, good. Nice here
sunny,
too.
so yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I do want to start with a big thank you to you, Harminder. You know, when we asked you to participate in ConnectFX 2020, we thought we would be in person in April. And that obviously didn't happen. And you have jumped through a ton of hoops for us to make this happen virtually. So thank you. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime.
And if for the audience members, if you haven't seen it yet, Harminder's conversation with Travis is live on the website, and it's fantastic. They talk a lot about their rollout of FieldFX. So if you haven't seen that video yet, I encourage you after this event, go check it out. There's lots of really great information. So just as a reminder, this event represents the Q&A portion of a customer-led session at ConnectFX. Matt and I have some questions. We had questions submitted ahead of time, and we want to take questions live on the fly. So if we're talking about something today and you have a question that comes up right then and there, put it into the questions box on the right-hand side, and we might answer it then, we might answer it at the end of the presentation, but don't be shy. That's what this is about. It's what's on your mind. Do you have any questions? So with that, let's get started. Harminder, a lot of your conversation with Travis was around the Big Bang implementation. You know, 14 locations, 395 users all at once. Did you guys ever consider a staggered rollout? You know, how did you come to that decision that Big Bang was the way to go?
Yeah, so we did. We were debating on it. At the time, we had an ERP that was integrated with a current field ticketing software. And so our thought was, is the system going to be able to handle having two separate field ticketing softwares integrate into our financial ERP system? So we made the decision that doing Big Bang was the best solution for us. We felt that pulling that Band-Aid off where users were required to use one system and didn't have the ability to use the crutch and go back to their old system was better for CEDA overall. All of us are using the same system all at the same time, and we all have the same growing pains all at the same time. And in my perspective, it worked out well.
Yeah, Harminder, did you guys roll out? I mean, is it literally like on day one that you guys rolled out 309? Like, I mean, you guys had it, because I remember we were up in Calgary talking about this, but you guys literally on one day cut off one system, rolled on to another system, and all users were trained within the same day. Is that accurate?
Close. So first of all, our IT department is amazing. They pulled their boots up and they were able to manage all of this for us. Andre did such an amazing job. And then second of all, we did a lot of our training beforehand, getting people in the system, using our sandbox environment, and getting comfortable in the system. But yeah, you're right. 395 users on a Monday morning were basically booted out of an old system and forced to use a new system. So yeah, you're 100% correct. That's a lot of people. It was a fun time.
Yeah, no, that's a great job. Definitely by your IT group. I mean, that's incredible. Like to accomplish something like that. There's no question about it. When you guys went live, I mean, I know that probably you had a lot of users that maybe were getting into the system and, you know, day one kind of, I mean, they're switching from one system to another or from paper to another system. And so I'm sure you guys had a lot of questions. I mean, how did you manage sort of the influx of questions that were coming in? Did you have your project team on call? Did you have people out at the locations? You know, what was the go live date actually, you know, kind of what did that look like?
Yeah, so we almost like a triage is kind of the easiest way for me to explain it. We had regional trainers, or super users within each of the regions that were the first main points of contact for any of our questions within the region. And if they couldn't answer, then we kind of escalated it to IT, and if IT couldn't answer it, then it came into the project team. We really tried to force people to use their regional support because we felt like we spent the time and effort to train them that they should be the ones answering those questions. So yeah, we used almost like a triage approach to it.
So you guys had, does that imply that you guys had like I guess you had regional super users, kind of a knowledge expert or super user on the product that would be kind of running that whole thing?
Mm-hmm. And so we trained them in all of our roles as well. So whether you were a dispatcher, contract admin, mobile user, or the manager approving the service order or ticket, they knew every one of our roles, and they understood the integration to our ERP system. And it really allowed us to have someone with boots on the ground experience helping other people in the same role.
Gotcha.
Well, so my question would be, what was the strategy in identifying who should be a super user? What did you look for?
So because we use a previous e-ticketing system, we knew who our good users were in that system. And the old system, again, it didn't work for CEDA. It just wasn't made for us. But we had people in there that could use it and understood it and understood everything that we were trying to achieve with FieldFX. And cream rises to the top, and those are the ones that we selected. We knew they were good in the old system, so that just meant that we knew they were going to be good in the new system.
Makes sense.
Yeah. How did you guys actually end up training those people? And this is kind of leading to another question that I had around training in general. I guess the question would be, how did you train the super users? And then what was the strategy for the super users to train the field people, or not even that, just all the other roles that you have within your company, schedulers, and users in general? What was the training process like?
Yeah, so we used super users, was the number one. So we brought them into Calgary, did a full 2-day session with them through testing and training and just the process of what we were going to do. And then we test them to train people. We also had trainers like myself or some of the other people that were in the project team that would be training as well. It's a lot of people to get through. And it worked out well. I think having your super users training is really a great way to do it. Our project team was 6 people. We can't go and train that many people. It's physically impossible to get everyone trained up on that date. The other thing is giving people the ability to go into Sandbox and train and test and get comfortable with the system makes the adoption and the go live so much easier.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, I've seen that from other customers too, where you have super users are critical because you have turnover with the employee base and so on, and you have new people coming on, being hired. And so having someone who's, a knowledge expert on sort of how the system works, rather than having to come back to a single source all the time, it alleviates and sort of distributes some of the workload there.
Yeah, totally.
So we got a question, guys. Isn't that exciting?
Cool.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask. It says, from your story, it sounds like there is a lot of trust and faith that you've put into Liquid Frameworks. What really caught your attention in the beginning that FieldFX and Liquid Frameworks can be the vendor and solution to support this type of rollout?
Number one is support. That's the one thing that we did notice, is that from a support factor, when we had questions, there was always someone that was there to answer it. When we ever had comment or questions, concerns, issues, Liquid Frameworks was there to help us out. The other thing that was really important to us is having a solution that was in our industry. Being tied to oil and gas is important, and having people that have implemented in the oil and gas sector is important because they understand what the challenges we're facing, either from clients or vendors or people in general. It made a huge difference for us when we're talking the same language, when we're talking the same kind of issues, and Liquid Frameworks already had that solution in the back pocket or in their mind, or had already put it into the product.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for that. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, that's certainly what we strive to do. I think that's our niche, is that we are targeted towards specific industries, and we have solutions for those industries, and we know the process behind what takes place in those industries. And so it's good to hear some validation on that. So thank you for that. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you mentioned, I think at one point in your video, that the goal is to and really our mission as well. Let's give some people back the time in their day, so that they don't have to be fiddling with software, right? We don't want to fiddle with software. The guys, they're good mechanically. They don't want to spend a lot of time in the software. We're not talking about Instagram or Facebook. We're talking about they're putting data into the system, right? And so they can generate billing, and they're not tinkering around in there. So you guys were able to streamline some of that. So I was wondering if you could just sort of provide some examples of processes that you were able to automate, maybe some different roles within the company and what that looked like.
Yeah, so one of them for us, which is really, really important, is we do a lot of staged work. Or guys will be going onto a job site for 2 or 3 weeks, let's say. And so the ability to deep copy a service order, as simple as that sounds, was so much of a time savings for people, because they build their first ticket and they deep copied for the entire shift. Now that those tickets are on the mobile platform, the users use the mobile platform and everything's pretty much all pre-populated for them. So we talk a lot of time on tools, that kind of KPI, how much time people spend on the tablet or in the system. And if things are pre-populated, there's less time, there's less errors, because everything's right there in front of them. But that deep copy function really helped a lot of our stage sites and a lot of our call-out work for long-term work be able to create tickets, service orders in minutes, where comparatively in the old system would be hours.
Hmm. So Harminder, is that saying? So are you saying there that you guys are deep copying because you have the same? Essentially, you're having some sort of recurring work or some sort of recurring job or something along those lines. Rather than having to go through and create that from scratch, you're able to utilize some out-of-the-box stuff to copy that and kind of get them started. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%.
Good. That's great. Good.
I wanted to ask about the reporting. You talked about one of the major benefits of FieldFX was the robust reporting. Can you give us some examples? What types of reports you're pulling to help you be more strategic?
Yeah, so we do a lot of transfer of equipment and people. So we don't have people always within, what we call markets or cities or locations. We move them around the country. So we needed a reporting that was robust enough where we know where that person was from, but then which region were they working in or market. So we've been able to create custom reports that do that for us, that pull in different information from different tables, and be able to report off of that. And it's really helped us out. That's one example. The other one for us is just in general, billable versus non-billable time, the ability to segregate those out in terms of what type of billable time do we have, whether it's travel time, whether it's, they're working a statutory holiday, if it's during the night shift or day shift, but then also segregate our non-billable time. So we really truly understand where that non-recoverable time is being spent, whether it has to do, again, with the statutory holiday, were they in training, were they traveling. Being able to pull that into a report has given us insight into our labor that I don't think we've ever had before.
That's great.
So Harminder, as a follow-up to that, I guess it's, the reporting being valuable, I guess is really what you're looking for on the labor side of things. And this is just an assumption and just based on some other information that I've gotten, but is it based on you want to keep your employees fully utilized, right? You need full visibility into their schedules, who's sitting on the bench, who's not, who's working out there. Can you talk a little bit about why the reporting is so valuable? Why do you care about the metrics on the reporting side for the employee hours that you're getting out of the system?
Yeah, so again, we're a very employee-based company, and it's important to us to ensure that every dollar that we're able to generate off that employee that we're paying that employee is being covered off somewhere else. So, we want to understand when someone's not billable to a client, just the why. Why is that happening? Right. We've been able to really focus on, if it's shop time or travel time, and have those, conversations with our clients saying, example would be, if we can't bill you for travel, then, we're kind of in the hole for that. We've been able to use the data and provide it back to our clients and and basically help our business.
Yeah. All right, no, good deal. Yeah, thanks. So I noticed that there was not a lot of, we haven't discussed a lot about EAM, which is the people on the call, Enterprise Asset Management. I know you guys are using that. I think the audience would be interested in sort of your perspective on it and how you're leveraging it and kind of what it does and so on.
Yeah, so we now have the ability to report in our biggest region equipment cost. So what is it costing us to service equipment? What is it costing us from a labor perspective, parts and stuff like that? And it gives us that ability to make better business decisions on our equipment. Everyone in the oil and gas industry knows for industrial equipment that there's a certain lifespan you get, whether it's the engine hours, mileage, or just the yearly usage of it. And so we want to be able to track if a unit's costing us too much. It gives us really good insight as to historical repairs. It gives us really good insight as to when do we need to retire that asset and get something else to replace it. So it's really helped us from a capital expenditure perspective, trying to forecast out, how much do you think we're going to need to spend to refresh and replace our current kit. So EAM has been really vital in that for us.
Okay, good deal. Okay.
Yeah. So you guys obviously put a ton of thought into this implementation upfront. And you mentioned that your upfront communication and the various types of trainings, you actually said you can't implement FieldFX in 3 months. So,
No.
Right. So I guess if there's somebody listening that is just now starting to think about their implementation, what advice would you give them as far as what are the various tasks you have to do? Who do you have to talk to? Who do you have to interview? What would you suggest that they do in order to ensure a successful implementation?
Yeah, so I think the first one is understand your ticket, or what we call service orders. Understand it cradle to grave. So where does it start? What information is required on it? And who touches it? And build up that flow chart. Like, it's really important for you as leading an implementation to just understand that basics of it. Again, because we use multiple systems to deal with the way we manage our business, our tickets are used in multiple fashions. So where is that information going? That is critical to implementing, a system effectively. I think flowcharts are really good. Everyone understands it. And then getting that understanding from your people in the field. So try not to talk down or push your ideas down. First, get a good understanding of what they're doing and map it out and say, does that make sense? We found that people might be touching things twice or 3 times for no apparent reason. So if we can build some efficiencies in the new model, that's what we need to do. So my suggestion, number 1, is understand what you're trying to achieve as a business. And the second point for me is keep it simple. A lot of the times, and I've used this analogy before, where people want to give their end users the Lamborghini, which is fine. You can go ahead and configure something that's going to be the be all and end all. The issue with that one is always adoption. There's just too much information. There's too many options. So when we implemented FieldFX, we actually did a like-for-like solution to what we had, but we kept it simple. Where FieldFX is now compared to where it was, 2.5 years ago, is night and day. The things that we've been able to do with it. So, we wanted high adoption, which is what we achieved. But from there, we also we needed to configure the system as we, rolled it out and as we used it and matured it.
That's great advice.
Harminder, during your implementation, is there, I think people on the call would be interested in sort of hearing, what would you do differently if you had to go back and do it again? Are there any takeaways that you had that you think maybe we should have done this, I don't know, differently, more efficiently, or done something, I don't know, in a different way?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Like, I know the Big Bang is a really, deer in the headlights kind of concept, but I think it was the best thing for CEDA just to rip that Band-Aid off. I think, our IT department did a phenomenal job. Our project team did a phenomenal job. Could we have tightened it up a little bit in terms of the timeline? Probably, but I think we were able to achieve what we wanted to achieve for Go Live, and it worked. You know, I would say maybe tightening up the timeline. If we had done it sooner, it would have been better. But aside from that, I think it went really well.
Yeah.
You know, that speaks volumes that you can do so much upfront planning that you can have a big blank implementation. And then you said in your video you went on vacation the next week. I mean, that's like, I got this, mic drop. It's,
yeah.
you
So I
did.
Yeah.
And then it went
my wife's a teacher. Yeah, my wife's a teacher. She got a week off at spring break in February, and we've always planned to go on vacation during that time. And I talked to my leader, and he's like, "You got to go." He's like, "Just go. You take your phone, you take your laptop. If something goes so horribly wrong, we'll let you know." And to be honest, I think I answered 4 or 5 emails that whole week, and probably 2 phone calls. So, you know, and it's not just because of me, obviously, but the project team is such a strong team. They were able to overcome any of the issues. There was nothing major that needed to be identified to be worked on. We kind of kept it status quo from the go live. So our IT department, again, phenomenal. Our project team, phenomenal. Support from my leader and his leader to say, yeah, go on vacation, spend some time with your family, because in the last year you really haven't. Number one was great for me, and number two, it was great for CEDA to see how successful they were.
Well, so I have to ask the burning question: where'd you go?
Out of Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well-deserved trip.
Yeah, so February in Calgary is anything but warm. I think when we left, it was minus 32 degrees Celsius, so I have to figure out what that is in Fahrenheit, but it was cold. it's cold.
Yeah. So just a reminder to enter in questions. We do have another question from the audience, and I think this is a follow-up to your EAM discussion. What are the biggest benefits you see of having FX ticketing and FX EAM together in the same platform?
Yeah, so you have the ability to capture equipment at a P&L level. So you have the ability to capture all your revenue, you have your ability to capture utilization, and the ability to capture all your R&M costs. So you have the ability now to capture equipment to determine your P&L. So you can get gross margin on a piece of equipment, and it tells you if you're making money on that one or that piece of equipment.
Great. Matt, did you have any other questions on your list?
I don't think so. I mean, I think one maybe thing that might be interesting is sort of your training strategy. So something I sort of skipped over earlier. I actually meant to ask it, but how did you guys actually do your training? I mean, did you in-person training? Do you have YouTube videos or some other videos that you put together, PowerPoints? Can you kind of just talk about like actually how the hand-to-hand training went?
Yeah. So I just mentioned before, my wife's a teacher, so she has to deal with different types of training all the time. So kind of leveraged her thoughts, and we kind of thought doing it 3 ways. So in-person training, one-to-one training or classroom style set training was one way we did it. The other way was a video. We did multiple videos for FieldFX. Luckily, no one had to listen to my voice too much. It was mostly another gentleman, which is always a good thing. And then the last one was just manuals. Like, we created our own manuals that were very simple. Click here, and you'll be successful. So we tried to use a 3-pronged approach for training.
Got it. Okay, good deal.
That's really
I think the last question I had, and I think one that's sort of a burning question for people that are considering FieldFX or that are going through an implementation, do you have any advice that you would give? And you could have touched on a little bit earlier, but maybe just to reiterate, what advice would you give as far as implementation? What is the best strategy for you? Obviously, you guys took a big bang approach, but do you have any advice sort of how to tackle that problem? Because I think that the software does solve things out of the box, right? It solves a lot out of the box, but there's a lot of change management involved. Every region has different requirements and so on. What advice would you offer to sort of get through that process and do it expediently?
Yeah, so another one I didn't mention was having a good project team. And when I mean project team, I don't mean just IT or just a couple people from corporate. I mean people that are doing the task a day in and day out. And the reason I say that is twofold. Number one, it builds buy-in at that level. You're involving a mobile user, you're involving a dispatcher to say, hey, this is how things are going to work. And they they advocate for you of the product. So from a change management perspective, that's kind of like your first level where you've got someone that's performing that task, in the field saying, yeah, it's easy. It's not that hard, you guys. Like, you just do a few clicks and your ticket's kind of built up. Or you do a few clicks and your ticket's submitted to the back office through a mobile. So having a really good project team is really, really important. The other one is having a Salesforce administrator will make your guys' life so much easier. We had one, and then we've had another one, and it's just made it so much easier when you're trying to configure the system to meet your needs. And having someone that has that understanding will make the project run so much smoother.
That's great advice.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's all from me. Harminder, I certainly appreciate the time. Thanks for doing the video with Travis as well, and being so involved. You guys are a great customer. We appreciate all your activity, and your adoption is very high, so it speaks volumes. So thank you for everything, as usual.
Anytime.
I look forward to getting back to Calgary and borrowing one of your jackets again.
Yeah, anytime, man.
Yes, I would like to second that. Thank you, Harminder, for your time. Thanks to everyone who joined us today. I hope you got some nuggets of information. I'm sure you did. And stay tuned next week. We are dropping the GR Energy Services video on Monday, and we'll be back next Friday with Barry Donaldson for another live conversation. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Harminder.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harminder. Thanks, Emily. Bye.
Take care.